Today we're here to talk about specifically digital. As you heard, Seth had kind of built his own little digital team in the basement of Price Benowitz. Was able to scale his firm from 2 to 40 lawyers using a lot of techniques and the 4 fundamentals that you guys have heard about today, whether it's content or it's technical, link building, where you're getting your name out in the community and you're letting Google know that you have a reputation, and local. Today we're going to focus on that last fundamental of local SEO, which has to do with Google My Business, the local service ads. Today, this is how we're going to structure it. We're going to start with local service ads, which Seth has been quite an expert on speaking in the last year since it came out. So we'll learn about what was it at the beginning, what's happened over the last year, where are we right now with these local service ads. We're going to talk a little bit about your Google My Business, that profile that you all know and love, but maybe have never signed into and have no idea, how does Google know what it knows about me? And then the Google Local 3-pack. How do you actually get into that nice little 3-pack at the top of page 1 with that beautiful visibility where people can actually decide if they want to use you as a lawyer and convert and become a client? So we'll start with the local service ads. As I mentioned, this is kind of new. It came out about July 2020, and Seth can talk to you a little bit about this one.
Well, basically, this was sort of a game changer. Google's always trying to figure out how can we squeeze some more money out of people, and lawyers are as deep a pocket as any. They beta tested this. I was out at the Google campus, and they were all excited about the home services space because a lot of nefarious locksmiths and home improvement people, and they came out with a product that sort of guaranteed people services. And it was above the paid ads. Here, there's not a set of regular Google ads, but these, when the regular PPC ads are there, this would be popped on top. And essentially what we're seeing is Google's like, okay, let's, if we go to the conferences like this and Mass Torts, you see lots of people selling pay-per-leads or pay-per-call services. Google's like, hey, that's good for us in the legal space. Jumped in, very clunky. How many people here are currently using LSAs? So a good portion. And in the contingency world, it has been a gift. I mean, it started off really cheap, and probably for most people here, the question is, how do you get more? But just quickly, for those that do not, you get your name, you get the number of reviews, your star rating, hours availability, years established. Limited data points, and to me, that's what's made it great in the contingency world. For those of you with a non-contingency practice, not nearly as desirous because there's not a lot of research going on. It's just pushing a button like a traditional ad. But when it started, really cheap. It keeps getting more expensive, and in more competitive markets like California, it's almost impossible to spend budget. So most people who are doing it in the contingency world probably just can't spend enough money. You're like, how can I get more? Raising your budget to astronomical numbers, knowing it should be such a problem that you get to spend it. It just doesn't happen.
So there were a lot of you that raised your hands. You are running LSAs, but for those of you who aren't, one of the biggest distinguishes is between the traditional paid ads that you guys know where you can actually make your ad copy, is that while you pay per click on those ads, you pay per call here, right? So if somebody sees your local service ad at the top, clicks in, goes to your website, that's just free visibility. You only pay for the call once it's actually about 30 seconds long. So if you're gonna run these ads, if you are running these ads, the biggest piece that I like to talk about is that intake. Make sure that someone's answering the phone. Make sure it's not a 30-second voicemail where they then hang up the phone, right? You just paid for that call and that person's never calling you back. So make sure that you have an answering service if you're going to run these ads and leverage that.
Let's take it one step further. Not just if it is not in-house, it is so important. It's a make or break as to how you're disputing. So time on call, if your staff knows, and ideally with in-house, if it's out-of-house, let them know that it's one of those things you want to monitor, because if it is something that if you can determine which are these calls, getting off the phone, you can challenge it later. But did I mention it's clunky? Really clunky, takes a long time to get credits back. It could be a huge swing in cash flow if you're lucky enough to spend money on this before you can get not cash back, but rebates against that. We've seen 3, 4, 5, 6 months backlogs to get your money back. So like most things, making sure we track earlier on intake. It's funny how all SEO panels end up converting to this world where intake is such an important part, because whether it's SEO or PPC, each of these calls so important if you don't capture and hold on to it. And in this case here, keeping the cost down.
Yeah, so training your intake even within that 30 seconds. Hey, you know, this is a spam call. This is my buddy calling. That's a referral. Hey, you know what? Let me get your number, call you back in just a minute, right? As long as it's under 30 seconds and you hang up that phone, you don't have to go through that whole process, which can take a lot of time and resources.